From above, the roof of Bete Giyorgis looks like a giant stone cross cut straight into the earth. But this isn't a carving, and it isn't the foundation of some vanished building. Down inside a deep rectangular pit stands an entire church. Builders started at the surface of the rock and gradually removed enormous volumes of volcanic stone until a finished temple was left standing in the middle of the excavated shaft. One serious mistake during the carving could permanently ruin the shape of a wall, a column, or a ceiling that didn't even exist yet. There was no fixing it. Legend says a single king created 11 churches here in just a few years, with angels finishing the work at night. But the marks left in the stone itself tell a far more complicated story. To create a fully monolithic church like Bete Giyorgis, builders didn't raise walls upward. They removed everything that wasn't wall. First, the outline of the future building was marked out. Then a deep trench was cut around it until a solid block of stone remained at the center. For fully monolithic temples, the work usually began at the top. The upper part of the future building took shape first, then work moved down to the outer walls. Doors and windows were cut through, and only after that did the masons begin hollowing out the interior, leaving columns, arches, and dividing walls behind. That was the central engineering drama of Lalibela. In ordinary construction, material is added. A mistake can be covered with new stone. Here, material was only ever taken away. Once stone was cut, it couldn't come back. Not every church in the complex was created in the same way. Some, like Bete Giyorgis, are fully separated from the surrounding rock. Others are semi-monolithic, one or more sides still connected to the mountain. Still others are carved directly into the rock face and never had a fully freestanding facade. Calling all 11 monuments freestanding monoliths wouldn't be accurate. Bete Giyorgis is really the clearest demonstration of Lalibela's whole principle. From above, all you see is a stone cross at ground level. But walk closer and it becomes clear that this is the roof of an entire building hidden inside a deep shaft. To get inside, you first have to descend through a narrow trench. Less like entering a constructed temple and more like stepping into a space that was freed from the mountain itself. No complete set of the builder's tools has survived, but tool marks on the stone suggest iron picks, chisels, adzes, and wooden levers. Ethiopia had ironworking long before construction began here. The idea of wooden-only tools, or rock as soft as clay, doesn't hold up. The volcanic rock itself is uneven, workable in places, loose and porous in others, and cut through with cracks. This meant the stone was never simply easy to carve. It was an unpredictable material that demanded constant judgment from the builders. Lalibela's monuments fall into two main clusters, divided by a seasonal watercourse known as the Jordan, with Bete Giyorgis standing apart on its own. All of them are linked by a network of trenches, courtyards, stairways, and dark tunnels. Visitors sometimes call one of the passages the Tunnel of Hell. You walk through it in total darkness before emerging into light. Modern tradition reads this as a symbol of death and resurrection. But what the passage originally meant isn't known. Some of these tunnels may simply have served a technical or drainage function. And there was another problem, one rarely mentioned. Lalibela sits in a highland region with seasonal rains, and the deep trenches around the churches could easily have turned into reservoirs. So the builders cut channels, drainage slopes, and catch basins. What looks like a religious labyrinth was, at the same time, a complex system for moving both people and water. Over the centuries, those channels filled with silt were damaged and were rebuilt. And it turned out the church's greatest enemy wasn't an invading army, but water, slowly working its way into cracks in the stone. Bete Medhane Alem, the house of the Saviour of the world, is often described as one of the largest churches ever cut entirely from rock, ringed by a row of external columns. Bete Mariam preserves carved crosses and traces of wall paintings. In its courtyard, stone hollows are traditionally believed to have healing properties, a matter of faith, not science. Bete Emmanuel reproduces elements of Axumite architecture in stone, alternating projections that imitate wooden beams, so the church looks assembled from timber and rock, even though it was cut from a single mass of stone. And Bete Gabriel Raphael stands out for its massive facades and unusually high entrances. Its architecture has led researchers to suggest it may originally have served a secular or defensive purpose, though that's never been proven. The complex is traditionally tied to King Lalibela, the most famous ruler of the Zagwe dynasty, which rose to power in the highland region of Lasta after the gradual decline of Aksum as the kingdom's political centre. According to hagiography, a swarm of bees surrounded him at birth, which his mother took as a sign of future power. He later saw a vision of the heavenly Jerusalem, and God commanded him to build a sacred city on earth, with angels continuing the builder's work each night. This is sacred tradition, written down long after the events it describes, not a construction record. Modern archaeology doesn't support the simple version of the story in which one ruler ordered all 11 churches carved to a single plan within a few decades. Study of the rock itself, its cutting stratigraphy, shows some passages crossing others, some walls older than the rest, and individual chambers that changed shape and function over time. Legend sees a single vision. Archaeology sees layers of time. Lalibela's sacred geography is full of biblical names: the Jordan, Golgotha, Sinai, the tomb of Adam. Later tradition explains this by saying that once pilgrimage to the real Jerusalem became too dangerous, an idea often linked to Saladin's capture of the city in Tentaus of Livel Stuta, the king decided to build a sacred replacement in Ethiopia. No document from that period directly confirms this connection. It's more accurate to say that later tradition came to see the complex as an Ethiopian New Jerusalem, symbolically echoing the biblical landscape, not an exact map of it. Here's where the real turn in the story begins. Archaeological research at the cave church of Washer Mikael shows that long before Lalibela, the Ethiopian Highlands already had a local tradition of rock-cut settlements, burials, and sacred spaces. Lalibela did not appear out of nowhere. It became the high point of a much older ability to transform natural rock into spaces for life, memory, and worship. And evidence from successive cuts and spoil deposits suggests that the complex itself developed in stages. Some spaces may have existed before they acquired the Christian functions they hold today. Who actually did the work remains unknown. No records survive of crew sizes. It's reasonable to assume stonemasons, blacksmiths, carpenters, work supervisors, and clergy were involved, but there's no evidence to support claims of tens of thousands of enslaved laborers. Lalibela isn't an abandoned monument. The liturgy is still celebrated here in Ge'ez, the ancient liturgical language of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and priests in white robes lead processions carrying candles. During the Feast of Gena, thousands of pilgrims arrive here each year from across Ethiopia. Every consecrated church holds a tabut, a sacred tablet symbolically linked to the Ark of the Covenant, though it is not the biblical Ark itself, and it's only brought out during specific processions. An archaeologist sees a construction phase here. A pilgrim sees a place where the sacred is present right now. 8 centuries later, Lalibela's real enemy isn't time alone. It's water, erosion, cracking, and damage to wall paintings. In the 21st century, temporary metal shelters were installed above several churches. They reduced direct exposure to rain, but altered the site's historic appearance and created maintenance challenges of their own. In 2020, UNESCO welcomed continuing restoration work, plans for extended hydrological studies, geotechnical assessments, and closer involvement of local clergy and residents. International cooperation around the site's preservation remained active in 2026. Today, Lalibela's main engineering challenge isn't how to cut a church from rock, it's how to preserve it without turning a living shrine into a museum beneath a metal roof. Lalibela doesn't need any lost technology to look impossible. It was built by people who could picture a building inside the rock before it existed, and who had the patience to keep removing stone until that building appeared. Archaeologists still debate the sequence of construction. Engineers still study the marks left by ancient tools, and pilgrims don't come here looking for answers. To them, these walls were never a mystery. They were always sacred. Lalibela isn't a city buried in rock. It's faith, for which stone made way. Subscribe to Hidden Epoch if you want to keep exploring ancient structures whose real stories run deeper than their most incredible legends.